Chantal and Vinith, thanks for being here.
Of course, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
How has your NeurIPS been so far?
It's been great so far. It's been busy getting to meet lots of new people. We just had our poster session yesterday, which was a lot of fun.
A lot of really great conversations, but good. Yeah.
Cool. I would love if you could start off by just introducing yourself, your full name, and your institution to the listeners.
Cool, yeah. I'm Vinith Suriyakumar. I'm currently in the fifth year of my PhD at MIT in EC.
And my name's Chantal Shaib. I'm also a fifth-year PhD at Northeastern.
Awesome. And tell me about the poster that you presented. What is your research on?
Yeah, so I guess I can kick it off. So the poster that we had at NeurIPS was actually built off of some prior work that I had around syntactic templates. So this idea that there's part of speech tags, n-grams as part of speech tags that models tend to reproduce quite a lot in their outputs. And so in our work, we wanted to explore whether there's a spurious correlation between these syntactic templates and domains. So what we were trying to do is disentangle the effect of syntax versus semantics when we're prompting models. And so that's kind of the core idea of our project. And then if you wanted to talk about the safety implications that we also found.
Yeah, so then, based on the results we found kind of about the fundamental ways that LLMs are learning about syntax and semantics, we also then try to understand, what are the implications for issues like security and safety, which are very important in the current day and age. And so what we find is that given the way that these models are learning about syntax and semantics, there is a new vulnerability that exists within these LLMs that allows us to jailbreak them. Jailbreaking has been around for a while, but we show that there's a fundamentally new jailbreak that's very efficient that falls from the fundamental property that we learned about these syntax spurious correlations.
And tell me about what that fundamental property is. What exactly did you find?
Yeah.
Sure. So we found that LLMs tend to learn the syntax of their prompt, and sometimes this learned syntax overrides the semantics of the question. So one of our motivating examples was that if you have a sentence that's asking, what country is Paris located in? If we just substitute country for food, this is still a noun. So the underlying syntax stays the same, but now the semantics of the question are different. And what we find is that if the model is overly relying on the syntax, which was a conclusion of our work, the model will still answer France for the first question as if it knew that it was in the geography domain as opposed to the cuisine domain.
And how does that enable jailbreaking to happen?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what we see that the model essentially, is associating these syntactic templates with a specific domain. And so what can happen is that when the model learns a set of text that's related to like safe queries, so things that it's allowed to respond to, that safe set of text has a set of syntactic templates. And so what you can then do is you can take the syntactic templates from this safe set of text, and then you can prepend that or just add that somehow to a harmful request. For example, one of the really concerning examples that we found in our work was on GPT-4o Mini. We asked it, how long does it take to die from blank method? And then we add to that query, which, is related to suicide, so it really should not be answering that. Then we add a syntactic template from some really safe domain. And then the model then responds to that query. And what it did is it actually listed 8 different methods for suicide.
Wow.
Which was like really surprising to both of us, but I think really underscores how the syntax can be utilized in not so great ways.
Wow, that's huge. So just to be specific, what kinds of syntactic templates, what's an example of how that gets added to that prompt?
Yeah, so basically, one type of kind of data set is like chain of thought, explain your thoughts step by step. And so we look at kind of the sentences and the syntactic templates in a explain your thoughts fine-tuning data set. And then we take the syntactic template from that, which is often very, very benign. There's many safe domains where you ask the model to do that. And then we use that syntactic template.
Got it. And how did you two begin working on this project in particular? I know you mentioned you'd done some previous related work.
Yeah, so I think this whole idea of syntactic templates is very interesting. It's an interesting tool to kind of examine LLM behavior. And so we started talking about it and kind of thinking a little bit more about the implications, because to a certain extent, language models do need to learn syntax in order to produce fluent and coherent text. But it's kind of unclear how much the model relies on it. So we started chatting about that. We talked about how there are certain templates that tend to appear in particular domains. So you can think about maybe the news domain. There's a there are certain sentence structures that will appear more often than others. And so kind of testing this relationship between domain and syntax, and then kind of figuring out whether the model overly relies on it and what the implications are. And Vinith does quite a lot of work in safety and privacy. And so this was kind of a natural application.
Yeah, I think it was a really fun and great intersection between linguistics and security that I think we're both really excited about.
Is there a lot of other linguistics type work in the safety field, or is this pretty unique?
No, there's really not. So it's really, really unique. And I think it's also it just really excited us to find this like new intersection that I think we feel is underexplored, but really can shine light on both on how, large language models are fundamentally learning about the underlying language, but also how those fundamental learnings are important for security and safety, instead of kind of, some of the work that we have in the space is like just designing methods to do jailbreaking. But I think what was nice is like we had this fundamental learning, but it also had implications for security.
Got it. And as you think of extending this line of research potentially, like what are some of the branches going forward that you might be interested in exploring next?
A couple of things. That's a great question. So I think one of the most obvious things that has come up a lot in our discussions is mitigation. So how do we figure out how to get models to rely less on syntax to the point where it's problematic? So that's one interesting direction we've been thinking about. Most people tend to talk about lexical diversity when they're talking about the diversity of their data sets when training. But this work kind of showed us that we also need to pay attention to syntactic diversity as well. And then I think another direction that would be interesting is just trying to figure out other types of spurious correlations that can exist in text. So this is a topic that's explored quite a lot in vision. And there, in my opinion, it's a little easier to see, for example, like younger age can be correlated with women. That's what people find in the vision domain, but it's kind of unclear what that looks like in text. So exploring that, I think, would be very interesting.
Super interesting. And when you were doing this research, did you find a difference in how much different models relied on syntax? Like I know you mentioned working with GPT-4o Mini. Did you compare different models and notice anything?
Sure. So I'll just quickly say that it was part of this work relies on knowing what training data was used to train the model. And so really we could only conclude things about OLMO because all the data is available. For GPT-4o and 4o Mini, and for our llama models, these were more educated guesses based on querying a black box and then examining the behavior afterwards. But we did observe this in all of the models that we tested.
I see. And what are some of the other implications that you think this has for the safety field?
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting is that it's clear that the syntax will dictate some of the behaviors that the model will do for refusals, for example. So that's kind of what we focus on, right? But I think some other directions that we've been looking at are also related to I think deception and seeming is a huge concern in the safety field right now. And it might be interesting to see how things from psycholinguistics maybe have some interesting applications in this area. And it's something that I think we want to keep looking into. Broadly, there's a lot of different concerns in security and safety. And I think there's different types of linguistics could be useful as well. And the other thing we've been looking at is on distillation and thinking about how do we detect whether a model has been distilled or not. And it's kind of a concern that people have from a security perspective for things like IP theft and things like that. And so we've been looking at how to use this finding to build vigorous statistical tests for detecting if something has been distilled or not.
Got it. Cool. So what else are you excited about at NeurIPS this year? Have you seen any sessions you've been especially interested in outside of your area?
I think for me, the most exciting part is just wandering around the poster sessions and seeing what some of my friends have been up to, especially if, we're not in the same area geographically. So that's most of what I've been doing this NeurIPS.
Yeah, same here. I would say I think a lot of just catching up with old friends and hearing what they're doing, and also not everything everyone is thinking about is published yet, and so you kind of get to have this conversation and chat with them. And the one thing I'm really excited about is I'm seeing interpretability and safety intersecting and security intersecting, and I think it's really exciting to see that intersection grow.
Yeah, and now thinking 5 years into the future, which is forever in AI world. Do you have any predictions about what the future of AI security and safety will look like?
This is a good question. I think that actually one of the threats that I think is most relevant for the next 5 years or even going beyond actually is the open weight setting. I think that in the open weight setting, we can't deploy many of the safeguards that we do in the closed setting. I can't deploy a classifier or filters in that setting. And I think a lot of the misuse behaviors that we think about are going to happen with open weight models, where we have no control over how bad actors will use these models, as well as once we release them, we cannot take them back. And so I think we're going to see a lot more work in this space, and I think we're also going to see a lot more concerns and like desire for governance and policy around open weight models because of the fact that adversaries can use them in whichever way they want to. And so yeah, I think open weight safety is going to become a big thing.
What about you, Chantal? Do you have any other predictions?
No, I'll stick with what Vinith said.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, cool. And where can people find each of you to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, so I have a website, ms6511.github.io, but also you can find me on Twitter. It's just my first name, my initial M, and then my last name, or email me. Yeah, happy to chat with people, love to chat with people about what they're thinking about, especially in the safety and security space.
Yeah, I also have a website, but you can find me on Twitter, email, anything works.
Perfect. Okay, thanks so much for chatting.